But protesting ain't gonna do shit.
I just want to know when the we light the torches and get the pitchforks.
We are the generation that has to do something.
Pretty soon, this right here, it's gonna be our only way up out of this shit.
I think I'm willing to die for this.
We can't wait till November. There's no waiting to the ballot box. We need to get to the bullet box.
I'll be brutally honest, I see an insurgency brewing.
Well, I think it's safe to say that Americans have finally reached their breaking point, as evidenced by the fact that so many of them are now talking openly about a literal revolution, either through peaceful means like a general strike and mass mobilization, or through an armed revolt. And this kind of revolutionary fervor only starts to take hold in societies when people start to feel like political change through traditional democratic means is no longer possible. And Americans are right to think that that's the case, seeing as how we effectively live in an oligarchy where billionaires and large multinational corporations dictate all of the public policy that gets passed. It's to the point where we don't even get crumbs anymore. Like, remember when they used to give us some incrementalism, sprinkle some crumbs on us just so we feel like we're fed? They're not even doing that anymore. And just to give you a recent example of how bad things are, look at this headline from the New York Times, which reads, EPA to stop considering lives saved when setting rules on air pollution. In a reversal, the agency plans to calculate only the cost to industry when setting pollution limits and not the monetary value of saving human lives, documents show. I mean, what is there to even say anymore? It's a little too on the nose even for America. So needless to say, the system has completely and utterly failed its people. Other governments throughout history have faced popular uprisings after they weren't able to adapt to the changing needs of its people fast enough. But I mean, in this late-stage capitalist hellscape that we're living in, they're not even trying to adapt. In fact, they're openly defying the masses by cutting our social safety nets even more to pay for more tax cuts for the rich. It's like they're spitting in the faces of a population that is already pissed off. And we've been on a downward trajectory for so long that Americans feel like they have nothing left to lose at this point by rising up. The cost of living is unsustainable, healthcare costs are skyrocketing, and to add insult to injury, the things that once distracted us from our misery are also becoming too unaffordable, like video games and streaming services. So when people no longer have an outlet, bread and circus, if you will, to keep them entertained, when they have no escape, no community, no hope, they begin to fixate on how bad things are, and eventually their anger begins to fester, and it reaches the point where they become consumed with rage and can only think about how much they hate the people in power who are responsible for all of their pain and suffering. And you really get a sense of that feeling of despair and hopelessness from these social media posters.
Fuck this goddamn country, this stupid fucking country that we live in, this dumb fucking world that we live in. In what fucking universe is any of this just gonna be taken fucking lightly?
All we do is work to barely get by. We pay our bills, we pay our rent, and we scrape up the pennies to try to put food on our table. We are not living a dream. We live in the worst nightmare we ever could imagine, and tomorrow's gonna be worse. If we all stand together and say, you know what? It isn't going to get any better. Stop every fucking thing. I don't give a fuck what it is. People are afraid, oh, I might lose my house. You're going to lose it any fucking way. But at least be a man or a woman and fight for this motherfucker while you got the opportunity to do it. But to try to end the shit that we live in, man, this is not living. I don't know what the fuck you call this anymore. Out of all the years I've been on this motherfucking earth, I never would have imagined it'd get to the point where I'm working myself to death.
And I also came to the same conclusion myself after the George Floyd protests went absolutely nowhere. I mean, we saw an international civil rights movement, and it resulted in zero policy changes. In fact, police budgets in cities across the country are actually bigger now. So everything that we're seeing is forcing Americans to grapple with the reality that the system isn't built for them. It was built to exploit them and oppress them and control them. It was built to squeeze as much profit out of them as they possibly can before they die. Hence why people are beginning to yearn for a revolution, because anything short of that simply won't change things.
I think I'm willing to die for this. I'm patient, I'm intentional, and I'm very slow to anger. And if I'm here, I believe that I'm not alone. I would be willing to wager that anybody else who's paying attention is right here with me. I think the people are ready. We're attending record-breaking rally after rally across the country, even the world, but we lack a clear plan beyond basically complaining in all its forms. Why in a country of 341.7 million people can we not find a single voice directing us towards liberty and justice for all? Our senators, our congressmen, our elected representatives represent the highest bidder, not us. The good people in this country aren't asking for another peaceful protest that fizzles out by Monday. We're not asking for catchy slogans or edgy t-shirts. We're asking for direction.
I can assure you that things don't get to this point for no reason. Regardless if you agree or disagree with what they're saying, it's important to understand that this doesn't happen in a vacuum. You can look to popular uprisings and revolutions all throughout the history of the world, and there's always a specific set of conditions in the lead up to revolutions. There's a collapse of social order, widespread fear and disillusionment, distrust in the system, failure or unwillingness of the state to adapt, a growing revolutionary fervor, to name a few. And just purely from a clinical political science perspective, it's obvious that the US has reached that point. We meet the criteria for revolutions. We're ones to be on the lookout for if you're a political scientist looking at countries that might see a popular uprising in the short term. It's obvious that the US has reached that point. It doesn't mean that Americans will definitely revolt, but the signs are there, and government officials need to take it seriously if they don't want that to happen. They need to meet the needs of the people if they don't want that to happen. And the thing to keep in mind is that, as wonderful as it sounds to be free from the clutches of the evil American empire, not all revolutions are successful. Sometimes it really depends on how the state responds to it. If they try to address the demands of the revolutionaries, that could quell the revolutionary zeal. If they try to crush the revolution through force with violence, that could also lead to revolutionary failure, or it could spiral into a civil war. But even successful revolutions where they overthrow their government sometimes creates power vacuums where bad actors rise and come to power, and sometimes that new regime ends up being even more repressive than the last one. And these are all obvious risks that are considered by societies before they choose to actually revolt, which is why there's always so much hesitation and wariness and deliberation beforehand. But I mean, for them to know all of these possibilities and for it to get to that point where they're willing to take that chance and roll the dice, they really have to feel like their current situation is untenable and they can't take it any longer, and that they have no other choice but to revolt. And you really get the sense from a lot of Americans that that's where they are. They're in that state of mind. Despite the risks, they feel like arming themselves is the only way to survive the threat that they're facing. And this was exemplified in this interview from Status Coup. And they were talking to a protester in Minneapolis. And this was directly after Rene Good was executed. And what he says speaks to what I'm talking about here.
And murdering people for trying to flee and for obeying a command to leave the area, and then shooting her in the face like that after she drops her kid off at school. We have to show up with guns. We have to. There's no other way around it. I don't care if I don't have a Minnesota carry permit. I'm unarmed right now, but this is the last time I show up to face these guys without a weapon. There's no way. I got shot with a pepper ball 5 minutes after walking in here. I never laid a finger on them. I never raised a hand to them. I've only been using my voice. The time for speaking is over. The time for niceties is over. The time for peace is over. They fired the first shot. It is time to end this shit by any means necessary.
You're talking about, potentially going to a dark place in this country. Do you foresee...
We're there. This is the dark place. This is the dark time. We have people being sent to Salvadorian concentration camps. We got other countries being raided for their oil. We're in the dark time. There's no way out of this. There's no voting our way out of this. We can't wait till November. There's no waiting to the ballot box. We need to get to the bullet box. That's the only way. If there was another way, I'd be advocating for it. I've spoken peacefully. I've marched peacefully. I marched without Sharpton. I marched on Washington. I've been peaceful. I've acted peacefully. The time for peace is over. The time for any means necessary is right now.
But I want to share one last video with you from somebody who confirms that the Trump regime's repressive tactics have unquestionably set the stage for a domestic insurgency. And that's what he thinks is going to happen. That's what he thinks is already taking shape because of what we're seeing. And I think that what he says here is really important.
I'll be brutally honest. I see an insurgency brewing. because the brutal fact of it is we are under paramilitary occupation. We are under police state occupation right now. ICE is an occupying force. Our own government has been sent to occupy our cities and terrorize the public. State-sponsored terrorism. That's literally what's happening. So what? Some of them do it in plain clothes, wearing level 4 flak vests and stuff like that under their clothes. Others do it in full tactical gear. Masked, refusing to identify themselves, literally kidnapping people, raping women, and that kind of stuff. Literally ripping people out of their homes, kicking in doors, a direct violation of the First and Fourth Amendments. Refusing to comply with the law that says that ICE has no jurisdiction, no authority to detain American citizens. I could go on and on and on. They're lawless. They're straight up and down lawless. If local and state law enforcement in large part won't do anything about this, they won't rein them in, well, what do? Well, I think the only thing that I see coming, and it's not good, is I see a literal insurgency force brewing. You know, I see it. Why? I mean, how can I recognize that? I went to Fallujah, for crying out loud. ICE is not prepared to fight an insurgency. They'll lose. Now, the problem's going to come when they when they use the National Guard. That's going to be a problem for them, not the insurgency. Because the National Guard are people who live in the community. They're not going to be willing to turn their weapons on the civilian populace, and they're not going to, no matter how much they're briefed. A people determined to be free, you can't defeat a people like that. Ask the Russians when they tried to conquer Afghanistan. Ask us when we tried to conquer Afghanistan. You get where I'm going with this? ICE and this administration have backed the American people into a corner. They've declared war on every American citizen, every man, woman, and child in this country. They've branded all of us domestic terrorists just because we disagree with Trump. The entire world is isolating us until we get our shit straight. And the only way this shit is ever going to get straight, since politicians, yes, on both sides, Democrats and Republican, are both in on it, it's going to take an insurgency to get us free.
Yeah. And for the record, you didn't see him say this since I had to edit down his video for time. But if you watch the full thing, which I'll also link to down below, he says multiple times that he's not advocating for violence and he doesn't want there to be an insurgency, but he just feels like that's an inevitability at this point because of the climate that we're in. But in conclusion, I sincerely hope that the country doesn't devolve further into a state of violence, but I fear, like the guy we heard from, that is indeed a possibility since the regime refuses to de-escalate. With that being said, I'm not making a prediction or giving you a probability, although I'm sure that Kalshi and Polymarket are already on it, but I'm telling you, as a student of political science, the prerequisite conditions for revolutions have already been met here. And if the ruling class really doesn't want to see a civil war or insurgency or an outright revolt, they need to immediately address the demands of the public right now. They know what we want, they know what we need, and they need to address them right now. Not in November, not in 2028, but right now.
大家好，我是主播周玉琴。很多的朋友告诉我们，选择原版的太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌，它添加有羽衣甘蓝，健康再加分。而有睡眠困扰的朋友们，赶快选择蓝色包装这一款晚安加强版，绝对是更有感。每日克菲尔，时刻美好 ，Good Feel Good， 请上快点购为健康下单，而且要记得输入推荐代码，有额外的折扣优惠。太阳星全效克菲尔益生菌基础版、晚安加强版，新包装改版，内容不变，抽取更方便。要吃就吃最好的。